Good evening and welcome to VU Sports Wired, everyone. I'm Jackson Martin. Alongside me is Reid Harris. A little bit of a slow week in Vanderbilt news today, but we still got just enough for a show today. We're going to start off the big news of the day. John Jenkins leaving for the NBA draft. It is official now. He has declared. So John's gone. We're going to talk about some of our favorite memories about him, the things that we've enjoyed over the last 3 years. And then we're going to see how that's going to impact the team next year with a core now of just Rod, Dejan, and Kedron, minus John, obviously. Then another team that might be looking forward to next season, the baseball team, only won one of 3 in Starkville against Mississippi State this weekend. Then we're going to head on over to the practice field where spring practice is in full swing. We got the black and gold game this Saturday. So we're going to talk about some of the stuff that's been going on over there and also break down the quarterback controversy that's brewing between Austin Carter-Samuels and Jordan Rogers. And then we're going to take a walk around the bubble and see what else is going on in Vanderbilt sports. So let's get to it. Starting off with John Jenkins, officially declared for the NBA draft. Reid, what does it mean?
Yeah, John Jenkins to the NBA draft. This is something that most people have been expecting for a while. John Jenkins, one of the most prolific scorers in Vanderbilt history. He's led the ACC in scoring each of the past 2 years, which is something that's pretty unheard of. He obviously had an incredible career. It could be argued he's the best scoring Commodore of all time, or the best scoring Vanderbilt player of all time. He doesn't lead in the record books, obviously, but he's just an incredibly prolific scorer and somebody that will be missed very dearly next season on a team that is really not deep at all talent-wise, doesn't have much coming back.
Absolutely. And John led the SEC in scoring each of the last 2 years. First player since 1996 to do that. And I think that speaks volumes about just how dangerous of a shooter he's been. And especially, I think the things we're going to remember about John, obviously his 2012 SEC championship with the win in the final against Kentucky. John's legacy is going to be an interesting one because as a team, he never got past the second round of the NCAA tournament, but also individually led the Commodores in so many different ways. He's from Hendersonville, right near Nashville. So it's going to be interesting to see how his legacy develops over the next couple of years as maybe one of the all-time great Commodores.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, it's hard to say he's not the best offensive player of all time, at least scoring-wise. When you look at all that he's been able to do at Vanderbilt. Like you said, he's a local product out of Hendersonville, the first 5-star athlete in any sport for Vanderbilt, at least in the era that we've been.
Even bowling?
Even bowling, as long as recruiting sites have been keeping track of that. So an incredible athlete comes into Vanderbilt, a program that has had some success traditionally, but not nearly so much as other programs that he could have chosen. And he came in, did extremely well in his 3 years, could never make it over the hump in the NCAA tournament to really get on to the next level, but he did very well. It's hard to blame him for going to the NBA. It seems like there's a good chance he'll sneak into the end of the first round, and if he does, that's guaranteed money. And it's hard to turn down that much money you can get in the NBA. He's told the Tennessean, he told Jeff Lockridge that he planned to finish his degree at Vanderbilt at some point, and you hope he does. You got to hope he does in the event that basketball doesn't work out, because it's easy to see that it may not, given his skill set. But if it doesn't, John certainly seems to be setting himself up either way.
Right. Chad Ford of ESPN released his first mock draft today. Has Jeff Taylor going number 20 to the Memphis Grizzlies, and has John and Festus as the first 2 players out of the first round. We'll see how that changes as workouts and the scouting combine go. But, and you touched on this, certainly going to be a weaker Vanderbilt team talent-wise next year. John would have been taking a huge risk coming back next year and letting teams double team him and sort of expose some of those weaknesses that he does have as a scorer. So I think, again, the smart move to go to the NBA for John. But what's important to us right now is what this means for our Commodores next year. And most immediately, it means it's not as talented of a team next year.
Yeah, the first thing you obviously look at with the loss of John is the guard play. And coming back, you've got Kedron Johnson and Dejan Parker, and also everyone forgets about Kyle Fuller, who'll also be coming back. You see Dejan there. He's shown incredible athleticism. Came into the program as a really highly ranked recruit. He's shown that on defense. He's been a defensive stopper Really not quite as good as Jeff Taylor was last year, but the second best defender on the team, certainly for Dejan, at least on the perimeter. He was able to do a lot last year, kind of being the second-level player to come in, provide some quality depth. But this next season, it's all on him. Much of the offense, him and Kedron, the offense will be on their shoulders. And it's oftentimes, people say, oh, well, Vanderbilt loses 85% of its offensive production this year, which is obviously a big number, but maybe a little bit
deceiving. Seems low to me, actually.
That might be a little bit of a deceptive number when you consider that, as these guys get more minutes, their offensive production will obviously pick up. Next year's team will obviously not be as good, but there's still a lot of room to be excited, a lot of room to see these young guys developing, getting better. We've mentioned the guards.
Right.
You look at Josh Henderson, center, who was hurt with injuries for most of this year. After an early, he had some stress fracture problems with his ankle, I believe, and he was out.
Still on a scooter.
And he's still riding the scooter on campus, sure enough. But hopefully he'll be able to get back, heading in the right direction health-wise.
Right. Now, I guess it's time to move away from that and move towards the baseball diamond, where your Vanderbilt Diamond Doors only took 1 of 3 from Mississippi State this weekend. A disappointing turn of events. Mississippi State had a walk-off win on Sunday when Tony Kemp and Anthony Gomez combined for 6 hits in that unfortunate loss. But Commodore's still struggling through conference play, and it looks like it's going to be really difficult for them to get to that 500 overall record that they need to make the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, that's right. It looks like it will be an early exit, early end of the Commodore season this year, unless they can really put together a great strings of games.
Which they've shown glimpses of being a very good team. It just has not come together.
They haven't been able to do it with any consistency. You look at the Vanderbilt team. They're playing Belmont tonight. It looks like they'll pick up a win. And looking forward to the Auburn series this weekend, they've just got to put together some pitching consistency. Kevin Zomek, in my opinion, has really been one of the big disappointments of the Vanderbilt baseball team this year.
Oh, no question.
Came out as a Friday starter and just hasn't really lived up to what he was billed as last year anyways. He just hasn't been able to kind of entering that sophomore slump that happens so often. TJ Pecoraro is back. He's pitching innings. He's looking good when he has. He's not built up his endurance to where he would want it yet. But he could be a quality arm in the weekend rotation. Maybe to take that Sunday spot as Zomek maybe shifts out to a midweek position, depending on how Selman looks. There's just so many variables in the Vanderbilt pitching staff right now.
There really are, but again, they're all so young, too, which is something definitely that is a positive going into next season.
Right.
You have Zomek and Pecoraro, both sophomores. Tyler Beatty, just a freshman, and he's looking like he's going to stick around in that weekend rotation for as long as he wants to stay at Vanderbilt, really. He's shown great control and some plus stuff that made him a first-round pick in the MLB draft this year.
Yeah, he's shown a lot of really great stuff. His changeup especially is finally starting to get where it needs to be. Beatty's a guy who has shown inning by inning. There are times when he looks as good as anyone in the country, and then there's times when he just can't piece it all together. So he'll be looking, especially as he grows and matures, going through the heart of conference play like he is now. He's kind of starting to get a feel of what SEC baseball is all about. Looking to next year, you hate to do it this early in the season, but it's kind of something you have to do.
Kind of have to.
Where all the arms are coming back virtually. You look down the line, Pecoraro back from injury. We'll be able to see more what he's all about as this season goes on. You hope Zomek can get back into form as the season goes on as well. And you look at Selman, who's shown incredible velocity. He can really throw the fire out of the ball, but just has had trouble controlling that fastball this year. There are times in at-bats and in whole innings that the only pitch he throws is his fastball, which is just not something you can consistently do throwing the ball against SEC batters. So there's a lot of development that needs to go on. If there's anyone that can do it, it's Derek Johnson, the Commodore pitching coach who's won many accolades for his performance. So right now it's just kind of a waiting game for Commodore baseball fans. Just wait and see how this team develops and go ahead and look towards next season.
Another waiting game we have to play, waiting until August 30th for that first college football game of the season. By the way, go check out isitcollegefootballseason.com yet. I think you would really enjoy it. But we're in spring practice right now as Coach Franklin is in his second of these spring practices. Reid, you've been at almost all of them, Jesus.
Very near all of them.
Yeah, so what's been going on down on Natchez Trace?
It's been a lot of fun. It's been a fun spring practice period. It's been really developmental. A lot of players. There's been a lot going on. I guess the A lot of storylines and a lot going on with the quarterbacks, obviously. We'll touch on that more in a little bit. This week, for the first time, Warren Norman shed the red injury jersey.
Yep.
Back out there practicing. Showed some good signs. He's still not completely mobile. There were a few drills that he didn't participate in, still shying away from contact. Coach Franklin said he probably won't play in the black and gold game this weekend. But still good to see him moving around, fielding some kickoffs, which is something that we all remember from 2009.
Oh, yes, we do.
So Warren Norman, Zach Stacy hasn't had many touches this spring, just kind of wanted to stay away from the injuries. He certainly doesn't need to prove himself to the coaches.
No.
Looking up and down the line, there have been some surprises. To me, the biggest surprise from camp has definitely been Chris Quintera. Came into the program as a quarterback and redshirted as a quarterback last year. Quintera has come in, he moved to kind of an H-back tight end position, and has just been outstanding. Has had the most reliable hands of anyone on the entire offense, and I mean that, more so than even the receivers.
And especially with Austin Moynihan as your starting tight end, I don't think we can say it anymore without saying the often injured Austin Moynihan. Quintera could certainly get some looks as a modified tight end this year. Yeah,
the same way that Fitz Lassing has in the past for the Commodores. It's just somebody who can really be a threat when you look in the red zone or on third down situations. You got to expect Quintera to get lots of targets. He's been taking reps with the first-team offense, which is very impressive. A couple similar stories. You look at Wesley Tate, former running back turned wide receiver. This spring they move him back to running back.
Though he has still been participating in wide receiver drills.
At times, his hands have definitely been a big part of it. And they'll continue to use those even out of the backfield. He still has the hands of a wide receiver. Right. He's cut down on his weight. I think he's lost about 20 pounds since the end of last season. Wow. So he's much more quick on his feet. He can make the cuts that he maybe once could. When he came in as a freshman, he was used kind of as a power third down back to push through the line, and that may have been a mismanagement of his talent. And this coaching staff is really starting to see where they can use him because he is a weapon. He's extremely athletic.
Absolutely. And I think we're seeing Coach Franklin's offensive strategy is almost get as many playmakers on the field as you can and just let them go.
Yeah, so that's, you have Wesley moving back to running back, and that is that philosophy. Because you've got a little bit more depth in the receiver, not much, but some. And so moving Tate back to running back where you really need those playmakers, and Tate has shown himself to be one of those.
That backfield is just absolutely incredible right now. You got Zach Stacy, Warren Norman, Wes Tate, Jerron Seymour, a little guy who can fly around. Not to mention we're adding Brian Kimbrough. This summer he'll debut in Nashville.
A big one you forgot is LaFonte Thorogood. Another former quarterback turned running back. He's huge. He's about 6'2", 225.
We've seen him used as a fullback occasionally too in practice.
Absolutely, he's going to be a big body to really bruise some incoming defensive backs that come in on corner blitzes, and it'll be fun to watch. He's a big guy. He's been injured a lot in his time here at Vanderbilt, but he has shed the red injury jersey the past couple weeks as well, and looked good. His hamstring still appears to be bothering him a little bit. Hopefully he can get that all worked out over the summer and back out there running the ball hard like he has in the past. He played some running back in high school up through his 10th grade year, I believe, and he's finally starting to kind of find his place in the Vanderbilt offense.
Good. Now, the big storyline heading into camp, and me and Reid have butted heads about this several times, the quarterback battle between the incumbent starter, Jordan Rodgers, and the new guy, Austin Carter-Samuels. What, Reid, I'm going to throw this one to you since I know how you feel about this one. Who do you think is going to be the starter come August 30th?
Well, as you may have read in the most recent episode, or the most recent edition of the Vanderbilt Hustler.
It's an edition. This is an episode.
This is an episode. Edition of the Vanderbilt Hustler. I picked Austin Carter-Samuels, transfer from Wyoming. He's shown a lot of talent in camp, and we knew he had it coming in. He's got a powerful arm, decent size, about 6'1", 225. Very strong, very powerful. His arm strength is unequivocally more so than Rodgers.
He's great if you like 6'1", 225 quarterbacks, laser rocket arms.
That's exactly right. Which he has. He's shown all of the physical skills necessary to be that starting quarterback, and something that quite frankly Rodgers hasn't shown in his time at Vanderbilt.
Right. Something Rodgers has shown, however, is the ability mentally to be an SEC quarterback, which is something that I think we've seen through spring practice. Carter-Samuels isn't quite there yet. He's a little too slow through his progressions. He's a little too slow at reading the defenses right now. And certainly he has 4 months until the opening game to get that figured out. But as of right now, Rodgers looks like unequivocally the starter for your Vanderbilt Commodores in spring practice, at least in my opinion. And I don't even think it's close at this point because there's no old saying in Texas, we have it in Tennessee or something. That was a bad George Bush joke, never mind. But you can't just dance with the champ, you got to knock him out. And Carter Samuels hadn't done anything to knock Rodgers out of his seat as the starting quarterback.
You're right, he hasn't yet, and that's a fact, but he's getting there, and I really think he will if he keeps his head in the playbook the next few months. He has more physical talent than Rodgers does. I'd like to think that he has a better relationship with the other players and coaches. That's kind of maybe overstepping a little bit because Rodgers certainly possesses all the leadership skills that you want in a quarterback. But I'd like to think that Carter Samuels does too, and maybe even a little bit more so. You see him out there at practice, jumping around with the players, getting excited, doing all the chest bumps and stuff that you don't see quite as often from Rodgers. And that's certainly not a requisite quarterback thing, but it's kind of a plus.
I rarely see Peyton Manning throwing around chest bumps.
That's right. You're right, and that's a good point. But I really think Carter Samuels is what the offense needs, especially one of the big points that Franklin has made this spring is he wants more passing. He wants a pass-based offense, and that's really not something Jordan Rodgers can deliver. So we'll see. That's obviously the big storyline. Get the black and gold game on Saturday to learn a little bit more about that.
And I guess we'll see who is right come that black and gold game this spring. I guess we're going to move on to Around the Bubble right now. Like we mentioned earlier, the baseball team is a series with Auburn at home this weekend. Your women's lacrosse team has a game against Florida, their last conference game of the season this weekend. And also, women's bowling team in the NCAA championships. Reid, shockingly, knows a little bit about it. So
that's the resident bowling expert, Reid Harris.
There can only be one.
That's right. We ran a big feature on bowling this week, also in the Vanderbilt Hustler. But this is 7 straight years the Vanderbilt bowling team has been in the national championship. They've really, John Williamson, the coach, has really started to put together a dynasty, if you will. The Vanderbilt team most recently competed in the Music City Classic and really struggled. These bowling competitions are 2-day affairs. The first day did very poorly. They're grueling affairs. The first day didn't do so well. The second day, however, knocked off the number 1 and 2 ranked teams in the country.
Wow.
They had a really impressive performance. They pick up momentum. Because of their day 1 results, they finished 10th out of 20 in teams, which is certainly disappointing. But they were selected for the field of 8 for the National Bowling Championship, so should be exciting. And the championship on ESPNU Saturday night.
I was trying to come up with a strike or a spare joke. I just can't do it.
You're
so
out. That'll do.
I threw a gutter ball there.
That you did.
So
that you did.
We're gonna. That's awful. I'm sorry. So I guess that's going to wrap it up for this show. So for Reid Harris, I'm Jackson Martin. Thanks for watching VU Sports Wired, and we'll see you next week.